I suggest we take them one at a time. I make the motion. Anybody else want to make a motion? I can make one. Section B, I move that we set that limit at 200 feet for on-site use wind energy system. Shall not exceed 200 feet.
Is there a second to that?
Or
It's been moved and seconded that we inject, that we insert a height of 200 feet. Is there a discussion on this motion? Well, on the earlier one, we had 150, correct? They had
in between 150 and 200,
200.
they become a conditional use.
for on-site if somebody wanted to be their own generator. Yeah.
That gives us more say in where they're sited and so forth.
Probably be total height, shouldn't it? Total height?
Yeah, it should say total height to match the other language. I don't think it's a lot.
Do you want to amend that? Or?
Mr. Martis choose to do something.
Yeah, I move we amend that language to say exceed a total height of 200 feet instead of just height. I move to amend my motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to amend the original motion to insert the word total, no on-site use wind energy system shall exceed a total height of 200 feet. Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Chairman.
Full roll.
Let's see if there's an interest.
Is there an interest? Should we roll call this, or would you just want a voice vote?
Always votes fine with me.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion to amend passed. Now we'll go back to the original motion as amended. Is there any discussion on that?
There's no second.
No. Paul did.
Paul did?
Paul did, yes.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended?
Could you read back the motion, please?
Yes. For on-site use wind energy systems, no on-site use wind energy system shall exceed a total height of 200 feet. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll proceed to vote by roll call.
Mr. Martis?
Yes.
Mr. Castle?
Yes.
Mr. Giselle?
Yes.
Mr. Gillen, yes. Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Yeas have it.
Yes, for the utility scale. Another motion.
I move that whereas no large development that is more than 100 units of Vestas V100 class turbines with the larger rotor exists in a location reasonably accessible to the Riga Township Planning Commission for inspection. Whereas the existing installations of smaller Vestas turbines in Michigan have a number of ongoing community noise complaints associated with them. Whereas the existing zoning in Riga Township limited all non-agricultural structures in the Ag District to 40 feet in height and to which there has been no objection for nearly 40 years. Whereas the stigma effects that affect real estate property values may reasonably be concluded are increased by the mass of the turbines. Whereas John Sarver, head of the Michigan Wind Working Group, reported that industrial wind turbines elicit strong adverse aesthetic reactions in approximately 1/2 of the home buying public. Whereas Stigwood in 2008 has determined that larger wind turbines, quote, create more amplitude modulation, increased likelihood of low frequency noise, and greater disturbance inside buildings, end quote, than smaller turbines. And whereas the state has proclaimed industrial wind turbines a lawful use, I hereby resolve to insert language into our draft zoning ordinance that limits maximum turbine height in the Ag District to 400 feet.
Is there a second to this motion?
Support.
Where are you measuring the height from?
That's from the ground to the tip of the rotor.
At the top.
Yep. Maximum turbine.
Is there any
height to the tip of
discussion?
the rotor.
What are they recommending that these are going to be a height?
493.
493?
Huron County started out with a limit of 400 feet. When they increased their setback from 1,000 to 1,320, they at the same time also increased the permissible height, which effectively, in my mind, negated the advantage of increasing the setback to a quarter mile if you're going to make the turbine 25% bigger. If we could see a cluster of 50 or 25 or 100 of these 500 footers to make some judgments on, it would be different. But, you know, it's certainly not exclusionary to restrict them to 390 foot like they have built elsewhere in the state of Michigan. I've seen a lot of petitions and a lot of angry people saying they prefer to have none of these, which is not a legal option to us. 400 feet seems like a reasonable start, and if it turns out that's problematic, it can be changed in the future. And we're simply recommending this to the township board, which at their discretion can change and modify this as they see fit.
Any other discussion?
I think with what we're showing with the distance setbacks and with the noise ordinance, I don't have a problem with going with a higher, taller height.
I'd like to amend his motion to read 500 feet, a maximum turbine height in agriculture district of 500 feet.
Is there support?
Yes.
It's been moved and seconded, we amend this motion, the language to read 500 feet. Is there discussion on this amendment?
Can we make that height, total height again, too?
Total height, tip of the rotor.
Is that good?
Is that what you mean, tip of the rotor?
Yes. Just in court, that's what in line with our ordinances suggesting total height.
Right, tip of the rotor, not top height. I agree that our setbacks and noise will protect, our restrictions on that will protect people reasonably well, at least non-participants. But it does nothing about property value protection. Nothing in this ordinance addresses that, and in my mind, property value is directly affected by the mass of the industrial structure located near the residential property. In Canada, there's a cluster of 18 turbines which resulted in 12 abandoned homes that were just walked away from. We've read the report from McCann Appraisal that suggests that within 2 miles of turbines, we see a property value loss of 25 to 40%, and homes inside the cluster of turbines, so many of them have turned out to be totally unmarketable. We saw a report from the Berkeley Livermore National Lab by Ben Hone, which the developers brought to us that reported no meaningful loss of property value, though when you read into the details, they showed that within 1 mile, values were affected up to 10 or 11%, but they were not found to be significant. Neither was any allowance in that study made for the fact that in a number of circumstances, developers have had to buy homes out, and when they do, they've had to pay fair market value to get the people out of the house, which means that would not show up as a diminished value in the sales data, thereby not showing a loss of property value. Ben Hone this May gave a report, and I furnished copies of that to the township board and maybe you guys, that said his report was never meant to suggest that there are zero impact on residential property values in close proximity to industrial turbines. In fact, what he said is the developers should be offering property value guarantee contracts to residential people because these turbines are getting harder and harder to sell into residential districts. I buy and sell houses for a living. That's what I do. I will not buy homes in Ogden or Riga or Palmyra if I know that turbines are coming. Because in my mind, the stigma effect associated with industrial turbines is very much similar to living along US 223. Therefore, it's not primarily a noise concern or a shadow flicker concern. It's the mass of large industrial turbines and the effect they have on property values. To me, it's real, it's demonstrable. There's more studies showing that. In Denmark, they're saying the same thing, where they produce 20% of their power from wind energy. If you can see a turbine outside your window, you lose 20% in property value, and if you can hear it, you can't sell your house. How else in zoning can we address that except by restricting the size of the turbines? A property value guarantee is not appropriate in zoning language according to Attorney Homier. So that was my rationale for that. I don't know how else to protect property value.